Hello, and welcome to Marathon Swim Stories, where we explore the human side of the superhuman feats of endurance swimmers and those who support them. I'm marathon swimmer and coach Shannon Keegan. I was thrilled to talk to Jennifer Spencer Dutton after her latest big swim. She tells us all about the build-up, pandemic-induced postponement, and doing everything she could to prepare, as well as the swim. My giddiness is palpable. I want to make it to Switzerland. What a swim. If you haven't already, be sure to listen to Jennifer's marathon swim story. Enjoy. Hello, Jennifer.
Hi.
Thank you for being our guest today. I'm so excited about your recent big swim. Please
Thank
tell
you.
us all about Lake Geneva.
Well, first off, my daughter thinks it's hilarious. She's like, "Oh, the paparazzi! You're being interviewed for a swim blog." Like, yeah, she's 21, so yeah, they have no. My children have really no, like, no awe. A little bit of awe, but not much.
It's funny.
So I don't know where to start. Where would you like me to start?
When did you get the idea about it? I mean, I remember when I first wanted to do it. I've yet to. But
I think as far as I can remember, it came into my head because I did Lake George a few years ago. I think it was 17 because I looked it up. And Jamie, I'm spacing her last name, which
Monahan?
is embarrassing.
Jamie Monahan? Yeah,
yes.
She did it in like 2015, right?
Yes. Yep. So she had done it. But anyway, we did Lake George a week apart. Okay. And we've still never met in person, but we've just always kind of been near each other in the swims. And so I did Lake George the week after she did, or the few days after. And I just, in looking her up, of course, because I have to stalk everybody, saw that she had done Lake Geneva. And I was like, And so that was the first time. And I really am I'm really a freshwater swimmer. I mean, I've trained for oceans before. It's never gone well, except for the Boston Light swim. That's the only ocean swim that I really love. And, but I've trained for the English Channel and it's not I just love lakes. I grew up at lakes. I'm always been. So anyway, so Lake Geneva, I was like, oh, now this is interesting. And I didn't think my husband would ever go to it or for it because we've been to Dover twice. So and it's been a long time now. It's been like 9 and 10 years. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll broach the subject gently again of going somewhere far. Plus I've done SCA, like I've done some travel. Originally, I just wasn't used to traveling, I think either. And I did SCAR a couple of years ago. And so I knew I could travel and I was feeling like I had some more confidence than I did. And surprisingly, well, to me, surprisingly, he was sort of like, okay, well, it's our 25th wedding anniversary. This was last year we planned it for last year. And it's our 25th wedding anniversary. So we were sort of like, okay, how can we loop this in? My grandmother left me some Pepsi. So I was like, okay, I this could be like a gift from my grandmother. And, I got 2 kids in college. So we're like, So yeah, it sort of all came together. And my husband, who I really need to be, of course, with me on this because he's my biggest help, was up for it. And he kind of was like, okay. And having that indication of his confidence in me really helped, but also B, obviously having, him on board is huge. So we decided right before COVID hit. So I'd already purchased my flights. I must have done it January of 20. I must have, like, somewhere in the winter there, I got my flights, I got everything, and I was supposed to do it August last year. So yeah. I'm going to sneeze because I'm allergic to my lake and I just swam in it. So don't worry if I look weird. So that's, so I think that's where the idea started. And I was sort of on board to train. And it was, halfway through last summer, it was obvious that it was not going to happen because no one could leave the country or go into other countries. And I'd been, I knew mentally, I think if someone had said you could do it, I probably would have gone and given it a try, but I clearly physically wasn't ready. The pool that I swim in was closed all spring. Okay. And I have this little Intex pool out in the backyard that I swim on a tether. So I've been
Mhm.
doing that. So I had some hours under my belt, but I knew it, probably because all along I was sort of pretty sure it wasn't going to happen. And it was
Yeah.
like, that's weird, and so I didn't fully commit emotionally, I think,
Right. Right.
once things started to go downhill with travel.
Yeah.
Um, and then this year, it still wasn't really, I really wasn't sure until, a few weeks before, I was
Really.
still just kind of nervous that it wasn't going to happen and that travel was going to get shut down again or something, like all the, so I was like, when you look at America from a distance right now, it's like, Massachusetts is fine.
Right.
Honestly,
Yeah.
we're doing pretty well here. But right, if you look at the US from Europe's point of view, like, why would we, anyway,
Why would they let us in? Yes,
If
absolutely.
you see the news, if you see our news from over, anyway, so I was
Yes.
nervous that they were going to shut down travel like right before. So,
Yeah.
but I definitely prepared as if all winter and all spring. And I was like, I didn't know what I was going to do if they canceled it, but I knew if they did, I would just have to, whatever. But
make something up.
So that's how it kind of came about.
Awesome. How long were you there for? Like, did you do an anniversary trip? You brought your husband? Did you bring your kids?
We did not bring our kids.
Okay, good.
One
Good
is about to move to California next week, so he's all set. And my daughter had just spent 6 weeks in Greece during COVID. She got to go study abroad, so she was not stuck. We were not crying for my daughter, who got to go to Copenhagen and Greece this past year for college. So yeah, she worked and stayed, they both were actually local. And so they were dog sitting, and got my daughter 2 Jolene suits and called it even. So we got out of her hair for a week and I paid her with Jolene. But yeah, so we were just a week. My husband he's a GM at a pool, and he could only really take a week off and without things going crazy and
falling apart.
Yeah. So yeah, we planned it Sunday to Sunday, and that's what we did. And the good thing about a lake was that we were pretty sure, unlike an ocean, that, because I remember being in Dover and being like, should we stay longer? Because the weather was bad. So you're like, do you try to stay longer? How do you manage that other end of it? And I knew that pretty much having a defined end on this kind of swim was at least going to be okay emotionally, right, because it was going to either have happened or not. So that we would get a shot. I felt pretty good that we were going to get a shot. Although the week before the weather was really bad. I was like, but it was beautiful. So,
I want you to take us there, but before we go there, tell us a little about how you said you were ready. You trained a lot. Tell us a little bit, if you're willing to tell us a little what your training was like.
Yeah. So I usually ascribe to sort of I swim like 3 days a week plus one longer, usually on the weekends, but it turned into Fridays. Some years it's Fridays that I do a long one.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, when you have little kids. I know when I had when my kids were little, it was like whatever day you could get. Now no one cares, but except for work. But so I was doing that, and I do like my Peloton app a couple times a week, just because I don't want to swim every day. I know I don't want to swim every day. My body's, it's body and brain need a break. So, and I pretty much did that, and I basically mounted, kept adding on to the weekly yardage. And for the first time ever, I actually kept track, and I made a plan, which I never do. I never make a plan.
I appreciate that so much. I always I lay a plan out, but then I don't look at it again until right before. I'm like, oh look.
Yeah. Oh look. I see. Yeah. So I don't usually do it because usually things fall apart, and then I get disappointed. Like then I don't want the mental, like, oh my gosh, I didn't follow the plan. Now what? So this one I actually did do a plan, and I have a couple advisors. I don't have a coach, but I do have my chiropractor friend is kind of my physical advisor, and nice. She's an Ironman. She's done Ironmans and stuff herself. So she knows my body really well. So I kind of ask her advice. Do you think this many hours, and she'll be like, no, or yeah, so that's I had great. A little bit of advice, but I didn't take too much. I used to take more what everybody else is doing, and it doesn't work for me. So, it does. I think I do what everyone else does in the end, right. But adapting mine to somebody else's doesn't make any sense, because, we all know the people who can do 2 months of training and hop in and do Catalina or whatever. And I am not that person. So I'm not like extraordinarily, I'm not young, and I'm not, and I, I don't have that like innate, anyway, I don't think I trust it. I wouldn't trust myself.
Well, you have to know yourself. I think that's the most important part about deciding to push your limits, is you need to figure out what works for you.
And I think, so basically I just upped it to, I think my biggest week was maybe 26 hours. I started doing it as hours of swimming per week. And I sort of peaked at, I think 26, I knew all along it was probably going to take me 33. I don't know why I knew that, but I knew it was 33 because that's what Jamie had taken, like 32 and change. And I was like, okay, I'm probably a little, Lake Georgia is a little slower than she was. So I was like, all right, I'm probably 33. So all along I was planning, knowing it could take longer, of course, but up to 26. And I sort of thought, okay, that's about as much as I can do and not hate. And I did question my, by the end of that week, I do recall getting out of the pool and being like, I'm questioning my life choices right now. But not hurting. I wasn't in pain. So I knew I was okay. I just was crabby. And as a coach, I know that crabby is good. Like that's just the right place to be, was to the line. I was to the line, but not over the line. And so I was really happy with how that worked. And I kind of took it up till like 2 weeks earlier. I did the Memphre 15 mile. And that was the end of a 19-hour week. And then right after, so I was like, oh, but after that, I got to rest. So I think I did like 26, 24, but I have a whole chart, but it was, but yeah, so I kind of did it by hours and just up and back a little bit. It peaked enough that I definitely, this was more than I'd ever tried. I think even without charts, I have to say, this is probably more than I've ever really swam like that. So, so I felt pretty confident, and I knew I had done all I could do. I mean, I knew that anymore and I would be toast, mentally, physically, etc. So I was like, I've never actually felt this way either. I was like, okay, I'm done here. Like I can't do anymore. And I've prepared as best I could. And I just knew that was all, that was all I had. And
good confidence going in though. Yeah, you're like, whatever happens, I did everything I could.
Yeah, it was great. Actually, it was the first time I've ever, even my parents were like, you're so relaxed. I was like, well, I don't know. What am I going to do? I mean, I wasn't going to get pulled unless I was unconscious. So I was like, okay, I think physically for me, because, I went to the doctor to get a physical and to get an EKG. And I just went to some, clinic, and they're like, the front desk was like, because I had all this paperwork that they had to sign. And they're like, why, what are you doing? And I was wearing like a 1 mile swim shirt. And then one woman comes in, she's like, you can swim a mile? And I was like, and I thought she was like joking. I thought she was being like, you can swim a mile. So I was all defensive. And then I realized she was actually looking at my shirt. So I was like, oh, all right, you haven't seen what I'm here for. But I was like, well, this is actually a logical project. Like, it's actually okay. It's a logical project for me. Like I was trying to explain to people, it wasn't actually insane. Like it's kind of insane, but it's not really. It was a very logical extension of what I've been doing all these years. So it made sense. But trying to explain that to people is like, okay. And plus a lot of my, So they were funny at the doctor. What? Okay, your EKG is great. Good. All right, bye.
Good luck swimming for 33 hours.
What you're talking to about, but okay. So yes, so definitely some, unusual responses, but so I can't remember how I started with that, but so the training. And so one thing I have to say is that I did this time that I've never consciously done, which I think was huge. I trained and I felt good in that. But and there's a lot of hours on the tether. And there's a lot of mental training because I was on the tether in my 2 foot deep pool.
Wow.
For a lot of those hours. And
really,
over
that's
the winter.
I was going to ask where were how to break it up for us, but go ahead with your thought.
And over the winter, my pool where I work, I was lucky to be able to swim there, but you had to get out. I had to get out every hour for 15 minutes before the next hour started, because I had to be a good citizen. Even though I worked there and stuff, they couldn't let me stay. COVID protocols, everyone had to clear, and then everyone had to get in. So, so it was just different. My long swim took like 7 hours to do a 5-hour swim because of all the getting out, getting in.
Yeah.
And then I was afraid I wouldn't be able to actually swim any distance at once because I was like, okay, this is just not that.
Getting out every hour.
I'm getting a rest every hour. And so, but I went to Florida in the spring after I got vaccinated. My parents got vaccinated. I went to Florida and I was able to swim because Florida. And so I was able to go to that Y and swim for, 5-6 hours at a time. So I was like, okay, I can do this. Like, I can still do it. And it was so great not to be kicked out after an hour. And, but yeah, so that got my confidence a little better. Cause at first I was like, so yeah, I mean, definitely there was some differences with COVID and access, and I was lucky. A lot of things fell into place. But yeah, my little $130 pool has been my, godsend. And I learned a lot about my stroke swimming on the tether too. I will say, as a technician, I learned a lot about my stroke too. So that was kind of cool. It was actually an interesting gift. So, and I live near a lake. So, once it warms up or cools down, I can get in there. So I'm lucky in that too. I don't have to I don't have to drive to get to a lake unless I want to. So
right. Yeah.
What
percentage do you think you did like tether pool lake over the whole thing? I guess I'm sure it shifted as time went on.
It shifted due to time of year. So in the winter it was all pool, and then in the spring it started to be half, probably like 2/3 pool, 1/3 tether, and then the lake came up and it was probably like a third, and then the lake started taking a little more over as the summer went on. And my little pool stays really cool. I don't know why, but it stays cooler than the lake. So there were a couple of times we had still don't understand why, but I have an umbrella over.
That's it. Just shade.
Just shade helps. But and so there was like one heat wave where the lake was too warm, so I could do here, and so I just kind of tried to do with the temperature of this little thing has been great, because I knew it was like 68, 70, which is just what Geneva was going to be. So so that was kind of cool. So so between all those things,
very cool. The tether, I'm just thinking about there's almost the appeal of it being in the shade, and you're like, oh, I don't have to worry about sunscreen. It's like, I'm gonna go swim under an umbrella. That's absolutely great.
Yeah, some days it was like, all right, just give me my snorkel and my I'm all set here. I'm in the shade. And I definitely made that decision a few times, more than once, to go in the shade.
Did you do you just like swim without anything, or do you bring music? Some people like bring music into a tether situation, or you just went in there?
Sometimes there was there was one really bad day when it was raining and cold, and I just so didn't want to do it. And I did bring my radio. I brought like my speaker out there, and I did like blast it kind of right in my I hung it from my post, and I kind of blasted it right in my ear. I'm sure the neighbors got an earful of 80s classics, but yeah, so it does help. But I also tried consciously to not do too much stimulation, because I knew, deep down, I knew what I needed was no stimulation. So, but yeah, some days I did need it to get through. It's pretty
I've tried it. Yeah. I tried a few times. Go ahead.
No, you
I was just saying, like, I've tried a few times to like the Finnis headphone things, but it ends up taking over like my like, I just want to swim. I'm here to swim, and I start worrying about what it sounds like, and then it falls off,
and
I'm just like,
around,
this is frustrating. Like, at the end
I don't like this song. Like, then you're trying to I don't.
Exactly. So totally, it just hasn't ever panned out for me. But I have some clients that are like, oh no, I love it in my pool, in my tank, and then like in open water, I have no problem. Like, that's well, as long as you can do it without.
I did a little bit of it last year when we were in lockdown, and I really couldn't go to the pool or anything. So I had some sort of earphone thing that I entertained myself with for a while, but then I can't find. Now I lost it. So so this year I haven't used it, but yeah, I did find it entertaining. I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. But yeah, I had to be like, no, I don't like this song. Same thing you said. I got all distracted by like So it does pass time though.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so take us to Switzerland. How was the flight over? How'd you feel when you got there? Did they? I guess first, did they give you a window to swim, or did they just have a day and were like, we're going this day?
So you book them, I think it's 6 days that you have basically of their full attention, which is really nice. Plus you could see the weather, you know. So we had said all along that we got there Sunday night. So it was a travel day. Like we left here Saturday night and we got there Sunday, like dinner time. And so we knew I wanted to swim as early as I could because I knew if I was just there obsessing, I'd get so much more nervous.
Yeah,
and
totally.
But who wants to yeah, so anyway, I didn't want to do touristy. I'm not that good at tourist. I'm really not. I just would rather I just want to read and swim. So that's really, but so I really didn't want to like go look at museums and think about how I had this impending swim. So we both wanted to go. We knew we wanted to get it over early, plus the time change, plus because I knew I was going to blow any adjustment out of the water as soon as I swam through the night. So I was like, why get adjusted? It doesn't make any sense to get adjusted and then blow and then so
be up all night.
I wanted to go early, and of course it was dependent on the weather, on what they said. I was like, look, I'll go on Monday morning if you want. If you tell me that's the weather, I will go on Monday morning. I want the best conditions, and I want, I'm not afraid to go Monday morning. It's going to be, whatever. But it turned out that Tuesday was the best weather day, and we were so excited because that was perfect. Because then we had 24 hours to like, okay, just get here,
get there, be present, organize your stuff, get whatever you need.
Just organize, right? So just like get everything organized, and we had booked a hotel at right near the start. So those actually was really cool. So we could see the castle from this boardwalk. And I got to go swim in this beautiful pool that's in the town. It's like a town pool, I guess. It's right on the lake. And so I did that on Monday. That was really fun. And just got some, kind of shake some nerves out. And that was cool. Yeah. Everyone's so nice. I mean, it was just quite an exciting for me that I've been to Europe like a few times, and I'm not a world traveler, but I have been. But people were so nice immediately there. I could not get over it. Even with my high school French, which is atrocious, they gave me so much confidence in myself. Like that's what another American we met was saying the same thing. He's like, yeah, you get all this confidence. Then you go to France and they're going to totally like spit in your face. So it's like, yeah, if you go to France after this, they will not tolerate this, but here they're all really nice about it. So we got there and everybody was so nice, and the hotel was beautiful. It was right on the water, and we just had this beautiful walkway. I mean, it was so nice. I wanted to stay. I was like, okay, maybe I could do Florida in the winter and Switzerland I was like fantasizing. My husband's kind of like, I have to work for like 6 more years. So anyway, I was fantasizing about that because of course the weather was really, when we got there, the wind was blowing like crazy and the waves, there were rollers on the lake. Our hotel room looked out onto the lake. It was incredible. And but yes, there were rollers the first night when we got there, and I was sort of like, oh. But then that system kind of cleared out, so which was the forecast to do. So so we spent Monday kind of just putzing around and visited the grocery store, but we had brought most of our stuff that I needed, and Andy's pretty low maintenance during these things. He doesn't really do much other than snacks, so he was all set, and we just communicated with Tim and a few times like over that day, and that was confirming that we were ready to go, so then we just said, okay, we'll meet you at the dock. And we were within, 500 yards of the dock. We were staying. Oh, wow. So we just walked down to the dock and got on the boat, and then I motored over to the castle, and I unceremoniously, very ungracefully got off the boat, and then, which I still can't do well. And after all these years. And so I got off the boat and swam like 50 yards in or whatever, and then got out onto the rocks and then rocky shore, and then they blew the horn and I got back in. So
what time of day did you start?
So I started at, I think it was 9:15. We sort of assembled at 8. We got together at 8, and then they were all really on top of things, like the people on the boat. I think they might have stayed on the boat maybe overnight or something. I don't know. They were kind of close by, it seems like, in the morning. So they were all set to go to meet us at 8, and then go from there. We were even able to have breakfast at our hotel, because I think the breakfast started at like 7:30, so we were
Nice.
to have breakfast, so that was good. I don't think I ate really anything, but but it was kind of cool to just go through the motions of like, okay, this is a morning, this is and so yeah, of course I realized the night before that I had forgotten my Excedrin migraine, which is a huge thing for me because I use it religiously while I swim long. And I couldn't believe I have bottles of it everywhere. I have it in my coaching bag, the coaching bag, in my car, in the kitchen cabinet, and I have it everywhere. And so I didn't bring it. And so spent the night before looking for what is the European equivalent.
Yeah.
And then the drugstore opened at 8. So I ran over there. It was there when they opened the door, and got something that was kind of similar, not quite exactly. I don't think it really mattered in the long run, but I was really happy with myself, how I handled that mentally. Because a decade ago, that would have
really
just something like that would have definitely derailed me. And so I was really kind of like, well, this is happening regardless. So, so all right, how are we going to fix this? I have to do caffeine. I was like trying to figure out how much caffeine is in it so I could replicate it. And so, yeah. So we tried to so that was a little added drama for us in the morning.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah.
Gotta be something.
Yeah, of course. There's gotta be something. What's your feed plan like? Like, how do you, what do you feed on?
I had
prep stuff in advance, or?
So I did every 45 minutes for the first 4, and then every 30. And I often, as I think I probably said the last time we talked, because it's been with me forever, I often don't keep things down, but still being in contact with someone every 30 minutes is important, especially then. So even though I would be like, throw up and then it's time to feed, and I'm just going to switch it around in my mouth and spit it out, it's still that contact kind of matters, especially in the night.
Yeah.
So we kind of kept the every half hour thing going, even though things weren't necessarily staying. So I have noon tablets in water. I have some gluten-free kind of fig Newton things that I've been using. All the stuff I've been using as I trained. Peanut M&Ms, because it's like it's a family tradition that we have M&Ms. And then
that's great.
My mother gave that to us on my very first long distance swim. And so my mom's still always like, do you have the M&Ms? Make sure you have the M&Ms. My sister dropped off a big bag of M&Ms right before we left. So those I can keep down usually. And I had like almond butter, chocolate almond butter packets. Those were actually pretty amazing. And then for calories, and maple syrup, use that. And then I had this jug of maple syrup, so Andy kept pouring into the smaller bottle so I could, so we had brought that. And then I use Maple Water, which is Drink Simple, is the brand. I'm an ambassador for them.
Awesome.
The founder of the company is a friend, has been a friend for a long time, and they actually sent a carton of it over there for me.
Oh, cool. Nice.
So they sent it. Yeah. So I had it because I knew I wouldn't be able to get it there. It's not quite, it's nationwide, I think, by now, but it's worldwide.
Yeah, right.
So I was able to have that, which was really cool because that's such a familiar taste for me, even warmed up, but I don't think anyone else uses it. but yeah, even warmed up. So that was really awesome that I had that familiarity with that. So, so that was, I don't do the carb drinks. I've tried them, the consistency. I don't know. I can't. Yeah.
I hear ya.
So I try. It seems like a good idea. I just can't do it. So
So did you still have trouble keeping stuff down though? First, for how long?
Yeah, I did. I tried to make it till I thought I could make it till dark, and I didn't. And I started being sick probably at like 5 p.m. And then I felt better. Initially you feel better because you're like, stuff wasn't digesting.
Yeah,
so it's like, all right, great, it's gone now. I feel much better. So then you feel better, and then it starts being a cycle. Overnight for me, it's sort of migraine-y. So I didn't. Overnight was just, my main worry, Andy, this does not bother it bothers him, I'm sure, but he's seen me do this show before. He knows I'm okay unless I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And one of the drivers of the boat, they kept switching off, but the woman kept going, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Do not ask me if I'm okay. Please do not." And like, that is my least favorite thing. Do not ever ask me that. And so she's trying to be well-meaning, and she didn't know much English, but she just kept asking me. So anyway, and the observers were like, I look up and they're like, taking notes. I'm like, oh no. And they didn't speak much English. And I was just kept going, like every time I threw up, I was like, I'm doing great. This is what I do. I'm like, Andy, tell them this is what I do. Like, of course, he couldn't speak to them either, but so every time I threw up, I kept having to try to be really peppy, like try to make cute conversation after, so that it was so I was afraid they were gonna pull me. They had never seen anything like it. Oh, wow. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Andy's like, oh, that was definitely a world record. That was like an hour and a half added to your time. So, oh man. So that was shocking off for the observers. We'll probably never be the same again. But luckily, a lot of it was in the dark, so they didn't get to see it. But and then I was trying to hide it. I tried to hide it from them, and I think I'm so clever. And so it was a long night. But it was cool. There was lightning. There's like lightning hundreds of miles away, but the scale of things is so big, so there was no thunder or anything, but it was with my face underwater and my eyes closed, I could still see the flashing. It was that bright. Wow. And I was afraid they were going to pull me because there was lightning, and I look up and they're like, no, it's 100 miles away in the Alps, and nobody was particularly concerned. And so that was good. We had one little rainstorm overnight, but anyway, so nutrition, I did not keep much down. I kept a little bit down once daybreak came, kept like the almond butter down, and I kept, once the sun came, I was able to keep a little bit down for a couple hours. And then we started having boat wakes. Oh, no. And then it was just true. Then it was just actual seasickness and dehydration. So it was just like, goodness. That was the end. And I couldn't stop the cycle by then. I couldn't, but it was close enough to over. Wow. It was just like the last 5 hours probably is kind of a blur. Started to get a little like shocky. But again, I have done this before, so I knew that I was okay. Like I knew that I wasn't in danger. Right. And I knew I was coherent. I knew I was, obviously Andy would pull me if he thought he's seen me like, have things happen to me before, not in the water, but he's seen me incoherent before, let's just say. Mm-hmm. And so he knows to leave me in if I'm still able to argue. Then leave me in. I'm still able to yell at boats, like I'm still able to like yell at things and be angry at waves, then I'm okay. So it was a little harrowing, I think, in that way. And I definitely emerged from this swim saying, okay, I can't do another overnight until I see, and clearly for me, I need to see a neurologist or something about this, because I can't. And they're probably going to be like, who cares? Because you can't swim through the night. So I've had that problem before. And you probably have too, is when you try to say that you want to do something like, but I can't swim for 24 hours without throwing up. And they're like, we don't care. So because that's not an emergency, emergency. But it is it's really important to me. So it's right. Exactly. So getting someone to listen, I'm not sure that I'll be able to do that. But so that did definitely say to me, okay, I don't really need to put my body through this again without some sort of, there's got to be some medication. When I was pregnant, I took stuff, and that was pretty, just to stop that cycle. So the puking cycle. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Have you tried like Zofran or anything like that? I had that when I was pregnant, and I've not had that in in this time of life. I've tried scopolamine, like the patch and stuff like that, and that hasn't worked. And but Zofran, I think, is my next ask at the doctor, if my husband's ever willing to do it overnight. Now he's like, let's just do things that go in the day. let's do a nice 22 miler that you could do in 15 hours, all in the daylight. Right. So we'll see. But I knew with my nutrition things that this was the longest swim I'd probably ever be able to do. Like, I'm not going to do 2 nights. There's no way I could have physically gone another overnight like that. So I knew that this is probably my threshold. I hear you saying. Probably. Yeah. Maybe. But it sounds like you still want more. I don't know. I can't rule it out. I don't actively right now, but I can't rule out, when I, turn 60 or something, when something happens like that, and an opportunity, so if an opportunity came up, it'd be hard to turn down a beautiful body of water. So so we'll see.
Tell us about, I mean, you talked about the castle, you talked about, I mean, I've seen the pictures, but what was it like
Yeah,
being in there?
it was so beautiful. It was so blue. It's just so blue. I had a dream last night, and it
Huh.
was something about the blue, because I don't know why, but it's not the water is blue. It's not like Tahoe or Torch Lake, both of which I've been in and are like crystalline, are like, oh, they're blue, but you can see through them like that.
Mm,
This is like blue, but almost solid blue. And I
interesting.
don't really look down, so I have my eyes closed most of the time, so I don't really. I just looked down a few times just to see
Yeah.
what it looked like,
Yeah.
and it was like solid blue. It
Huh.
was interesting, and there's so much reflecting from sky. There's so much sky, and so much that the color of the mountains comes over, and it just, yeah, it's just breathtaking. It's magical. You feel like it can't even be real. And
Yeah.
of course, Andy saw much more than I did. He got to see a lot of really good things. He got to see like Mont Blanc, and like what he got to see was different than what I got to see, but
Of course.
still,
Yeah.
it was. And we go right down the middle, so you don't get to go close enough. Like we didn't get to go close enough to see any of the mansions or anything, which I actually
Oh.
kind of probably would have liked to do. But at least that passes the time if you like. But we were far enough from shore that everything was sort of. It took us forever to pass everything, but there's like a casino up there. One town. All night was light and in France, and Andy said there's a casino on top of the hill there, and like so. But yeah, it really was. It just was so big. It was so open and big, and not like a New England lake it was just so very
Right.
different from anything that I had done. And yeah, snow-capped mountains and everything, it's like
Great.
the mountain close up, and then there's a mountain farther, and then there's a bigger mountain, and then there's a bigger.
Yeah.
It just keeps going. And yeah, it was really, really beautiful. And the water itself was lovely and
You said the
clean.
temp
And
temp was
temp was perfect. I knew that was going to be in my wheelhouse. That was another reason this was a good swim for me, because I knew that this 68 to 71 was like perfect for me.
right.
Everything's cold after 24 hours, so it doesn't really matter. But
Yeah. Right.
but like if you could, but yeah, that's my favorite temperature, so I knew that was going to be good. And there's some currents which I've never really felt in a lake before, where the top was calm, but then there was current underneath. And my lakes that I've swum in before didn't really have that so much, and this definitely had a little bit of. And he said definitely, I was getting pushed back at one point, but there were no waves. It was just like the underneath pushing back. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting. Yeah, there's a lot. And unfortunately, I only got to see kind of there, but it was just otherworldly. For sure, from Villeneuve, where we stayed, from that little town was amazing, and then the whole lake was just so beautiful. And I actually, for once, didn't feel bad. Andy was not standing on the lake in the rain in Vermont in September. It was like actually really nice, and so I knew he was actually okay. Because you look up and you don't want to see your guy, like your person up there, like all bundled up, and so he was fine, and bundled up at night. I mean, it got a little cooler at night, of course, but he banged his head. He's a little tall for a boat, so he banged his head like 20 times so he has all these like scabs. But other than that, he's fine, and a little sleep deprived, but he got over that pretty quickly. But yeah, so they took care of us really well. And yeah, the lake was beautiful. And yeah, so at the end, when you come into Geneva, it starts to be popular, and it starts to be vacation land, and which makes total sense. But yeah, then and they're big boats, because it's a really big lake. So it wasn't like little, like my neighbor's water ski boat. It was like big. So they made some nice, annoying things and for me to battle. And
like
probably
waves
was good
and wake and
it's probably good to have a focus at that point, though, because just like getting through that, it was starting to get a little old, and I knew I was going to finish, but it was just like a matter of when. And so then they kept aiming at this fountain that you can see from forever, which I already knew that I was going to be looking at a fountain for a really long time, and that I was going to be able to see it. And I tried not to look, but I knew it was there.
Didn't you say like 10 miles out you could see it?
It was and I knew from Jamie that you could see that from really far out, so I knew not to get. And you know how the passage of space in water is just ridiculous. Like you can look at the same, when everything's so big, it never like a patch of land right on the side that I was looking at for like 2 hours. It was probably as big as, I don't know, it was probably enormous. But to me, I was like, why am I still in front of this patch on a mountain? But it was miles away and it was miles away.
Yeah.
And so we came in and it was all, and then there's this big thing to look at. It was actually, the finish was really well, where they had us finish was on a public beach.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a beach on this huge, when I saw it later from the other side, it's like this big outcropping of rock kind of thing that has this public beach on it. And then so they're all like 1,500 people sitting there and on the beach, and they just had us swim towards this board, and one of the observers got off and swam behind me in just to make sure, just to follow me in and document me clearing the water and stuff.
Yeah.
And she had my parka in a dry bag. And so she was sort of like, okay, see that blue thing, we're going there. And so it was actually pretty good as far as knowing where I was going. And then there was a swimming area marked with a wooden thing, like, why don't we just use rope? No, we use wooden planks. So luckily she was with me, so I didn't kill myself on the wooden thing by swimming into it. And so I clambered out onto the beach, and she followed me. And Philippe, my new friend Philippe, who's a medic on land, he came over and he started his job. And it was all really well organized. I think Andy and the boat came in. They went, they had to leave me, and then they went to the dock, I guess. And then a police boat brought them in. So that was like one of the coolest things of the day for Andy, the police boat. And so then, that brought them over, and they met me and got a taxi. Like I got to stay with Philippe for a while, where he talked to me to make sure he just was making sure I was coherent and still doing my thing. And he's just like, all right, but he's making small talk and not
like doing your thing, like you're still puking.
Yeah.
Or like, wow. Okay. So you'd said shaking, like the last,
my hair is like Medusa. So they announced it at the beach, which was really sweet. They announced it on the loudspeaker what I had just done, because a few people obviously could see me emerge, and they're kind of like, wow, what is this? What's happening here? And so they announced it on the loudspeaker, which was really, and everyone's sort of like, yay. And it was actually the nicest finish I've ever had, because it was the most public,
right?
And everyone was really nice, and they were all like clapping. The ones who could see, the ones who I was like standing right next to, they're all smoking. They're all smoking because it's Europe. So they're all like, they're all smoking at the beach and clapping for me. And I'm like trying not to throw up in public, and although, which I have done before, but I kind of staggered off into the lifeguard office, and then he talked to me for a long time, trying to see if I was lucid, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And they just sort of set me free. Andy and Tim from the Lake Geneva swim.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the boat the whole time, because they didn't believe me that Andy would do it by himself.
Oh,
so it was so nice, because Tim put himself on the boat, and I don't think he's usually they recommend people bring a crew, and we couldn't afford to do that.
Right.
And Andy always does it by himself. So it's sort of like, it didn't make any sense to find a volunteer from locally, because then it just was going to turn into Andy telling them what to do. And then he wasn't going to sleep anyway. So it didn't. Yeah. So we were doing it, and so Tim was on the boat too, which was really nice. And so he was just there for support and making sure everything went okay. And so they got us the taxi, and got in the taxi, and taxi driver was like, oh my goodness. Because they're like, she needs to sit in the front seat. And he's like, okay. And then, but he was very nice, like everyone. And the hotel, we had a hotel that was about 5 minutes, maybe 10, but 5 minutes away, real close by.
So you checked out of the other hotel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually timed it on purpose, that we had 2 nights there, and we were hoping that would work. We were willing to take the hit. If we went on Monday, we'll take the hit for that extra night of lodging. And we actually paid for our Geneva hotel with like points and stuff.
Yeah.
So we had that. And then, it kind of worked really well. We just went straight to our Geneva one. And
so you like brought everything. I guess you were only there for a week. You just like bring
your
luggage on board. You're like, it's all swimming stuff anyway.
Yeah. I was like, all right, well, this is how we're getting to Geneva. Okay. Then so
we got to get there.
Yeah. So guess we have our stuff. Where are we going? So so we had all of our stuff with us. So we just kind of, then we were in Geneva. So for the next few days. So we did get to, and the hotel was really nice. And again, everyone's so nice. And
how did you recover? How about tell me about recovery? Well, were you able to walk when you got off?
Yeah, I
got up
shuffle.
from swimming? Okay.
Yeah, I could shuffle a bit, shuffle enough that I wouldn't fall down. But yeah, when you first stand up, you're like, oh, I see my feet. I don't know how to work them, but I see them there, and so that took a little while, but I stood up while I was in the office with Philippe. I stood up for that whole time because I was afraid to sit down because I didn't think I could get up, and I definitely didn't want to lie down.
Oh,
and
gosh. I
was
like have the near pass out thing after going
yeah.
upright again. So I have to kind of lay down.
I don't, that's one thing I don't necessarily have. So
that's good.
Yeah, which is weird, right? Considering, and so I felt like the best thing to do is stand up at that juncture. And then I sat in the taxi. It was hard to get out. Sat in the lobby of the hotel for a minute. I think I fell asleep. And Andy said I fell asleep in the hotel while he was getting the key. And then but then of course I didn't sleep that night really because everything hurts and your heart's
you're just
pounding. Yeah. And I knew again that I wasn't going to sleep that night. So it wasn't like I knew I was going to be like, oh, I'm going to have the best sleep ever tonight. It's like, no, I'm going to enjoy lying in my bed, but I'm not going to probably sleep. And things were hurting, you can't roll over onto either side.
Exactly.
And, my heart rate was just going crazy because the adrenals were still, I was still at battle, my body still thought it was fighting. So that lasted over that. And plus I was still dehydrated. So I was trying to get some water down. And
were you able to keep food down at this point?
Not really.
Oh no.
The next morning I started again and I was able to sort of put stuff slowly in. And some liquids slowly in. Probably if I had it to do again, and if I had been someplace I was familiar, I would have just gotten an IV. And that probably would have solved a lot of my aftermath. Not all of it, but it probably would have solved a lot of my aftermath issues. But it seemed like such a pain. And I don't know. It was like, where are we going to find an IV? And I need to have one with a filter because I have this heart thing. I was like, I can't even just have a normal IV. Like,
Jennifer,
so
my goodness.
So I was like, all right, this is just too much. So I decided to just not, and which I think was fine. It just took a little longer to regroup, I think, than it would have taken had I done that. So one of the problems is I'm able to be eloquent even when I'm like dehydrated. So the problem was I seemed really fine, even though so it's been a problem throughout is that I can always talk a good game.
Right.
Hardly ever am I incapacitated enough to not be able to tell someone that I'm fine. So anyway, so that's probably what I would have done differently, because the next day I was still couldn't really enjoy the food so much. But we had lunch, we walked, had lunch, some coffee. That was iced coffee. That was exciting. And I was like really wanting that. And so each day it got better. The first day, not too much. And Andy was pretty shell shocked too, because he had been up for 33. He didn't sleep the night before either. And he had been up for all those hours. So he really was like sleeping. And so that was good. So we didn't really do much. And then the day after that, it got better. And I walked, I think like 3 miles. I don't know. So I kept kind of increasing my ability to walk, and we did get to do some scenery and some touristy, old Geneva and stuff like that, which was pretty, and that was nice. And the flower, it's very beautiful. I mean, it's the flower boxes. I'm a sucker for flower boxes, and they're just everywhere.
Wow.
And the people were nice. The food was terrific. It is expensive. I mean, people had told us it's expensive. Yeah, it's a little bit expensive, but we live in the Boston area, so honestly, it didn't seem, for a nice dinner, which I couldn't even eat a nice dinner. So luckily, I'm a cheap date after these swims, so Andy knows that. So I was like, I need a ginger ale and some French fries. So that was like. So that's day one, and then so I didn't even really, I'm a pretty cheap date. So after these especially, so we just were able to, kind of have some good food and wander around a little bit, and one little crying attack during the walking because we got kind of lost. I didn't really have I didn't really have the patience that I should have, and then so I knew I wasn't right yet, you know, because I still wasn't sleeping well. So I knew I definitely wasn't 100%. And, but I was able to enjoy it definitely more than I thought. And, you know, it's, so the last day we went on a boat. We even went on boat rides. So there's these boat taxis in Geneva. There's these little they're boats that are basically taxis, and they're free. So you just can ride like over there. So we actually did that. And the first day I was like, I'm not going on that lake. And then the second day I was kind of like, yeah, maybe I will. And then it was actually kind of cool to see everything, because we saw the beach where I finished, and we saw like some of the shoreline that I didn't really get to see when I was swimming. So we got to kind of ride around on those things, and
that'd be neat. So, that's always my like big regret after a big swim, is like I didn't get to see from above the water what it looks like.
Yeah, so so that was good. And I don't know why Andy wanted to get on a boat again, but he was fine. His dad was in the Navy, so maybe he has. So then it was time to go, and we, you know, got souvenirs for kids and got on the plane. I did have I had a panic attack on the way. Let's see, there's a short flight from Zurich to Geneva. Geneva to Zurich, and then Zurich to Boston. So we had a little flight first, and the little flight, they put us on we were on this plane that was big, but we had to take a bus to get to the plane on the runway, and it was warm, and they put us on this bus, and I had been okay before I got on the bus, and then I was not okay. And then I got off the bus, and I was like and then we had to climb these stairs to get into the plane, and I climbed them, and then at the top I just like started hyperventilating.
Oh no.
And you know, basically like sobbing, and for no reason. I mean, it was definitely an anxiety panic attack. And of course everyone thinks I have COVID, so like all the staff are like, you know, but we had gotten tested. I had been vaccinated. Like I knew I didn't have COVID. We had just been tested. So, and I knew it wasn't, I knew what it was.
It's a panic attack.
So
that's funny though, that everyone thinks you have COVID.
As soon as you start sweating now, it's like, just a fever.
Or you cough, or you sneeze. You obviously you have COVID.
You sneeze. Yeah. And so so we were really lucky that the plane was delayed leaving, because we were waiting for these 3 mythical passengers who never came. So anyway, luckily for like 40 minutes, I stood in the staff airway.
Oh, really?
In the plane. Yeah, I didn't have to go sit in my seat. And I got to stand there kind of near the door. And this really nice flight attendant, who was like my neighbor calls her my guardian angel, but she started talking to me, and she had a really good English. So we were just chatting, and she knew people from where I'm from. And she gave me some of her I don't know where she got these things, but she pulls out these pills and gave me one.
You're like, okay.
Right. So it's like willing to take anything, because I knew I still had a long flight. I didn't know how it was going to play out. And so she gave me she said she had just had one and couldn't go to work like 2 days earlier. She's like, this just happened to me, and I couldn't go to work because I couldn't get on the plane.
Oh my goodness. And that's crazy.
So here's what I have these. And so I was like, okay, you're a gift from God, and you don't even know how important this is. Yeah. And so anyway, that was the one little episode, but otherwise the travel was very smooth. After I was medicated, I was like, okay, I'm feeling, you know, I got okay. And but yeah, that was a little scary and kind of unpredictable. I didn't predict that happening. Yeah, that was not one. Lots of times I can predict where I'm going to set off, but that was not necessarily one of them that I would have thought was coming. So so that was really, you know, but it worked out okay. And thank goodness for kind people.
Yes. So, absolutely. The world over.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Andy's sort of like, she just swam the length of Lake Geneva, like 70K, and no one really understands. Like you have to sit and think about that for a minute. Yeah. After someone tells you that, and everyone was sort of just like, okay, you know, it's like, no, I don't think you understand. Like, she's fine, but she's not okay. Like right. Yeah. So, So it was all smooth, and one of my kids picked us up at the airport, and
You
coaching
made it
masters
home?
12 hours later. I was back coaching.
Wow.
So back to life. And then
Reintegration.
then I just started sleeping this week though. Interesting. I
Oh,
I did
wow.
just start finally being sleepy about a week
Mm-hmm.
and a half. I'm like sleeping now, which I really
Wow.
wasn't, but I've never been a good sleeper. So,
Huh.
but it's interesting that to watch my body try to catch up and try to figure things out. And
Yeah.
there's not much on it. There's not much research on this stuff, on what that does to you,
right?
so you just kind of have to watch it unfold.
Yeah. What about nutrition? Did you lose a lot of weight? Are you able to eat again?
Probably. I didn't weigh myself. I don't. But I was really puffy after, so I didn't sense that. And then
Yeah.
but I think I probably did lose some pounds. And then I'm pretty much back to, but it still took a little while to get back to kind of normal appetite and things like that.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I'd say I'm back to a week. I mean, I'd say turned a corner probably last Thursday. So yeah, so a solid week after I started to feel better, or
Wow.
less. I didn't have the underlying like shakiness that I had. And I think that was a lot of dehydration. I think a lot of that was dehydration. That's why I'm saying I think an IV probably in hindsight,
Yeah.
but yeah, just the body, the adrenals coming down from that battle. It's, kind of teaching your body that you're okay and you don't have to fight anymore. And kind of how that plays out is fascinating. So
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. What about are you gonna jump right back in the water again? You taking a break?
Yeah, it's too hot now. I can't do. I usually do my fall running / shuffling career, and when I don't want to, but I wait till my pool goes under the bubble and the lake gets too cold. Still, I do that. So I'm still actually wanted to get back in the. I wanted to get back in the water, which I mean I wouldn't have forced myself, but I was kind of interested. So I got back in and just doing. I did like 3 miles this morning. It's a little hot, so almost, but it's slow, but it feels good-ish.
That's great.
And a little bit in the pool, which is fun. That's kind of that's neat. And then back to the Peloton a little bit. We're nowhere near. I mean, the first week and a half, my heart rate would elevate like at the slightest thing.
Oh, interesting.
The resting heart rate has come back down, but like the first time I did the Peloton thing, I was like, oh my God. For me, I mean, my heart rate is it's not really high ever, but it was sort of like spiked pretty quickly, which is neat. And then but I think that's kind of gone back down, but
interesting.
Yeah. So just kind of, so I've gotten back in the water, which usually I swear to myself, I'm not, usually I don't want to, but this time it made sense. It just felt okay. Yeah.
Wow. So, well, as long as you're listening to your body.
I mean, it seems to be what it asked for. So
okay. You still have time for your fall shuffle / running career. You've got a month or so.
Just got my new orthotics, so I'm all getting geared up. Not a land animal, but it's really good to take. It's really important to take a break though. Like it really is. I mean, it's like, I'll do this now because it's fun and it's pretty outside and it's beautiful and I want to be in the sun. But I know, October, November. I probably, sometimes I don't swim at all. Sometimes it's like once a week, twice a week. And then around Christmas, I'll start maybe getting back, kind of trying to get back to 3 times a week. And then, so I just know how this plays out a little bit, but you need to can't go right back to no intensity, no watch, no nothing. Right.
Yeah. Yep. Very cool. Thank you so much for telling us about your Lake Geneva crossing. That was awesome.
Of course. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to relive it. I'm always happy to do that, I think.
Yes. I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Do you want to take Marathon Swim Stories with you? Subscribe on your favorite podcast provider. Want to connect with like-minded limit pushers? Join us for Marathon Swim Stories Live on Tuesdays at 5:30 a.m. Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, 13:30 GMT. Thanks for watching.